Hi everybody, Stefan Molyneux from Freedomain Radio. Hope you're doing well. So I just did a video recently called An Introduction to Sophistry. I would now like to do an even more important video, an introduction to first principles. Ooh, the basic meat and marrow of philosophy, which I think is absolutely essential for clear thinking and bringing the clear, high, rational gales of thought to blow away the low-lying fog of tradition and culture and superstition and so on. So let me start with an example from a book I read many, many, many years ago, and I was in my early to mid-teens, called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You probably know it as a movie. I don't know how many times it's been remade. The one I saw was with Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy, and it was a good film. Frightening, because it is basically the mind of a paranoiac extrapolated into science fiction, but in the book, which has some very interesting philosophical arguments, a man is talking to another man, and he says, I don't know how to explain this. I don't know if this is going to make any sense. I don't even know if it's sane, but I really have this very strong feeling that my wife is not my wife. That at some point, I'm not sure exactly when, but at some point, relatively recently, in the last, month and a half, that my real wife was taken away and a substitute wife was put in her place. I know, it sounds crazy, but that is what my experience has been. And I sort of feel like I'm sleeping next to some replicant, or maybe it's in a flesh robot, or maybe someone who's been cloned. And I really feel like this is not my wife. She looks like my wife. She talks like my wife. She has memories that only my wife could have, which I know is a problem to the thesis, but I don't really think that she's my wife. And the other guy says, well, what about scars? Because if your wife had somehow been cloned or replicated, the DNA would not produce the scars. The scars are a result of whatever happens as an adult or a child. And he said, well, this is the weird thing, and this is where I know. I don't know if you're crazy, you never think that you're crazy, but I'm totally thinking that I could be crazy. So I'm just telling you, when she was in her 20s, she had a mole removed from the back of her neck, and it left a scar. It's a little star-shaped scar. That scar is there, which I know kind of scotches the theory, but I cannot shake the feeling, and it's a creepy, creepy feeling. I cannot shake the feeling that my wife is not my wife, that she is someone, or more likely, something else. A fascinating question. Let's just say the original wife is wife A, and the potential replicant wife is wife B. There's no null hypothesis here, right? So if your wife gets teleported out and replaced with a flesh robot wife, then you could ask that flesh robot wife about things that only wife A would know about from your early dating that maybe you never shared with anyone else. What sex position were we in when we think we conceived our first child or whatever? Or where did we go on our third date? Remember the place with the giant ceiling fans that look like palm trees or whatever? Now, if, of course, your wife can't answer these questions, or if she has no scar where the mole was removed, then you have a problem, right? Something has really changed. However, if she can answer those questions and has the scar in the shape of the star and so on, yeah, it's a big problem. Because now there's no way to prove the thesis that wife 2 is not the same as wife 1. That's interesting. I know it sounds very abstract. This is really, really important for your life, which I'll get into in a few minutes. Because there's no way, there's what's called a null hypothesis. Can something be proven or disproven? Like if I say I dreamt about an elephant last night and I wasn't wired up to anything, can you prove or disprove that? Well, no, you can't, because it's my subjective reporting. I mean, you could put it in a lie detector or whatever, but you can't conclusively prove or disprove something. And so a position that I think is very important for your life is if there are two positions and they oppose each other, right? Either that's my real wife or it's a replicant wife. If there are two positions with no null hypothesis, we can rationally discard the more complicated one. Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually the best and the truest. Because there could be many reasons why I think my wife has changed. Maybe she's having an affair. Maybe I'm having an affair, not telling her, and that's affecting her behavior unconsciously. Maybe she's got a brain tumor. Maybe she's not sleeping well. Maybe she's going through menopause. Maybe she's under the influence, positive or negative, of some new acquaintance. Maybe she has a worry she's not sharing with me. Maybe she wants to leave me. There could be, maybe she really is going to come out as a lesbian, right? I mean, there could be any number of reasons why my wife is acting differently that would have nothing to do with and not require some bizarre technology which replicated not only memories but also scars on a person. So when you have two opposing or distinct proposals and there's no null hypothesis between them, well, basically they're the same, right? Because if I say my wife is a replicant or my wife is my real wife, and there's no way to distinguish between the two arguments, and there's no way to prove or disprove either one of them, they're really kind of the same argument. My wife is my wife. And so you can discard the more complicated one. My wife seems a little different. It's obviously possible and believable. My wife has been beamed up and replicated in some giant orbiting watermelon that has coughed out a wife with the same memories and the same scars as my wife and beamed her back down to me, and so on. It doesn't really make any sense. Now, in the context of the book, of course, it makes sense, but in reality, it doesn't. Let's look at another or a more common issue that people bring up. This goes back to René Descartes, which is the argument, the matrix argument. How do we know for sure that we are not brains in a vat with electrodes being controlled by some hyper sophisticated, what he called a demon, or what we may call space aliens turning us into batteries? How do we know that we are not in a delusion or an illusion? Because we have the experience of dreams where we genuinely believe we are doing things which are probably impossible and certainly not in the bed that we're in. We have the subjective experience of smell, of sense, of touch, of sex, perhaps even of ejaculation or orgasm. We have very vivid and powerful experiences when we kind of know we're in a bed, not moving. So we already have the matrix. Is one of the reasons why the idea is so compelling, is we have that every night. So how do we know that dreams are subjective, but tangible reality, sense reality, waking reality is objective? Well, there are ways of testing that. So for instance, if I go to sleep and I have a dream that I'm doing cartwheels on a beach in Belize, well, what I can do before I go to sleep is I can set up a camera, like a video recorder, to record me. And then I have the subjective experience of having dreams or of doing cartwheels on a beach in Belize. But then when I wake up and review the footage, I realize I didn't sleep fly to Belize. Right? I'm not missing from my bed. I'm in my bed the whole night, and I'm not doing cartwheels on a beach in Belize. So that's how I know it's subjective. I could, get someone to watch me all night as well if I want and trust that person, whatever. So that's how you know it's not occurring. It's occurring in the mind, but not in reality. However, of course, if I have a memory of doing cartwheels on a beach in Belize, which I do actually, but if I have a memory of that, and there are videos of it, and I have plane tickets, and my family was there, and my friends were there, and we all talked about what a great time we had, then there's no reason, of course, to believe that it was a dream, because there's actual video footage of me doing the cartwheels, which don't occur when I'm dreaming. So in this argument, maybe waking reality is a dream just like we sleep. Well, no, there's a difference, right? There are differences in that dreams cannot be recorded by third parties, but waking reality can be. And of course, in dreams, things tend to be very consistent. You're walking on a submarine, it turns into a whale, you fall, you can swim underwater, and then you are hugged by an octopus, which turns into Kim Kardashian's butt cheeks or something like that. I'm sure we've all had the same dream. Torpedoes and butt cheeks, not hard to figure out. But when we are dreaming, things happen in a flow. They happen randomly, objects don't have constancy, there are no laws of physics that apply in a universal that can't be observed by third parties. These are all indications that what happens in dreams is physically impossible in the real world. I mean, as a whole, some certain aspects of it would be possible, but as a whole, there are transitions without travel. You know, I'm in the Arctic, I'm in the equator, and so on, with no intervening travel. And so this is, you know, for these and many, many other reasons, we know that dreams are subjective within our minds, but waking reality has consistent principles, right? Object constancy, the laws of physics are universal. They are inviolable, at least at the sense data level. And so we know for sure that there are differences between dreams and reality. Now, what we could say is maybe our waking reality is a dream, even though dreams are subjective and inconstant and unverifiable by third parties and contain contradictions and other impossibilities. We could say, even though waking reality and dreams have opposing characteristics in many ways, incompatible, opposite characteristics, maybe, just maybe, waking reality is also a dream. Well, that doesn't work because dreams are very specific and have specific characteristics. You can't take that and then say that it's the same. So, for instance, water tends to take the shape of the container you pour it into, right? A brick does not. So if you say, well, maybe a brick is just another kind of water, you know, at the sense level, right, at the sort of naive empirical level, it doesn't make any sense because water has particular properties that aren't applicable to bricks. So you can't take those properties and then just say, well, maybe a brick is just a different kind of, maybe a brick is just another water. Right? Well, no, because it doesn't have the same characteristics. And so waking reality doesn't have the same characteristics as dreams, and they're opposing. Now, if you're going to say that waking reality is just another kind of dream, then you have to have a null hypothesis for that. Because we have one to compare dreams to waking reality. So how, if waking reality is a dream, how would you know? How would you know? Now, it turns out that there's no way to know. Whenever you talk to people about, well, how would you know? I know why dreams are dreams. I don't know how you would prove that waking reality is also a dream. And whatever test you put up, there's no answer to. So in other words, reality is real or reality is a dream. There's no null hypothesis between these two. And therefore the simplest explanation must be accepted. And the simplest explanation is waking reality is objective, empirical. It's not a dream. You know, dreams aren't a dream within a dream. We're not in the matrix and so on. As the simplest and most universal and most understandable explanation for a wide variety of reasons. So, for instance, how do I know that waking reality is different from dream reality? Well, in dream reality, I am never told knowledge that I do not at some level possess. Right? So I've never had someone in a dream step me through all of the mathematical and physical proofs for Einstein's second theory of relativity. It's never happened. Right? I have been lead singer for Queen, which has never happened, but I'd certainly love to try one day. Not with the cold voice, but anyway. Yeah, like I could step into Adam Lambert's prancing boots. Not gonna happen. But I have never told myself in a dream information which I do not have at some level or at some capacity. But of course, I can go, if I want, take courses or just look up and go to Khan Academy and look up a variety of things that I don't know, which means that there's consciousnesses out there that have knowledge which I don't. Anyway, you could sort of go on and on with this kind of stuff. But the answer is no. Existence exists. Other people exist. They're just like me. I'm not a brain in a vat because there's no way to prove or disprove that I am. And so we throw out the most complicated one. And we take the one that fits the most evidence. So having stepped from Invasion of the Body Snatchers to the Matrix, we can now move on to first principles. So, can the mind make an error in a dream? When I'm dreaming, can I make an error? In a kind of way, no. Because I'm creating that reality. My subconscious is creating that through the weird magic of the brain that allows us to do these amazing things while we sleep.